How people speak English. Maya often felt a knot in her stomach when English was spoken around her. She understood many words and grammar rules, having studied diligently for years. Yet, when it came to expressing her own thoughts, the words would vanish, leaving only a frustrating silence. Her mind raced, translating, then freezing. This internal battle was exhausting, preventing genuine connection. She admired how effortlessly others conversed, their sentences flowing like a river. Her own attempts felt clunky, like assembling a puzzle without all the pieces. "Why can't I just speak?" she'd whisper to herself, staring at her reflection. The fear of making mistakes paralyzed her, making every potential conversation a daunting challenge. One quiet evening, scrolling through online forums, she stumbled upon a community discussing unconventional language learning methods. They spoke of immersion, not just in a foreign country, but within one's own mind. A spark of hope ignited within her, a realization that perhaps her approach was simply misdirected. Her first brave step was to start talking to herself. Alone in her room, she began describing mundane objects. "This is a blue pen. It writes smoothly on paper. I use it for my notes," she'd murmur. It felt awkward initially, but it forced her brain to construct sentences actively, without immediate judgment. She progressed to narrating her daily activities. "Now I am making coffee. First, I boil the water. Then I pour it over the grounds." This simple act transformed her internal monologue into an active English practice session. It was private, safe, and immensely effective for building basic fluency. This consistent self-talk gradually built her confidence. She started to notice patterns, common phrases, and the natural rhythm of English. It was like practicing a speech repeatedly before the actual performance. The words became less foreign, more like her own thoughts, slowly but surely. Next, she explored the power of reading, realizing its profound importance. Not just textbooks, but captivating stories and engaging articles. She started with simple narratives, gradually moving to more complex texts that genuinely interested her. This made the learning process enjoyable and sustainable. Reading exposed her to countless new words and context, making retention much easier. It also showed her how native speakers structured sentences, expressed emotions, and used idioms naturally. The more she read, the more intuitive English grammar felt, moving beyond rigid rules. She found that learning English through stories was particularly effective. Fictional narratives, even short ones, provided rich vocabulary and demonstrated conversational flow. The characters' dialogues taught her practical expressions and varied tones, making her understanding much deeper and more nuanced. Stories allowed her to absorb language organically, rather than just memorizing lists. They embedded vocabulary within a memorable plot, making recall effortless. This method was not only effective for learning, but also incredibly entertaining, turning study time into cherished leisure. As her reading and self-talk progressed, Maya consciously began to shift her thinking. Instead of formulating thoughts in her native language and then translating them, she tried to generate them directly in English. This was challenging at first, but essential for true fluency. She would pause, take a deep breath, and force her mind to articulate its thoughts in English. For example, if she saw a dog, She wouldn't think, "What a cute dog," in her language, but directly, "Oh, what a cute dog." This direct connection bypassed the translation barrier. This constant practice of thinking in English dramatically improved her speaking speed and spontaneity. The words no longer needed to be fetched from a separate mental compartment. They were readily available. Her mind became a direct conduit for English expression, reducing hesitation significantly. Remembering new words was a persistent challenge. Maya experimented with various techniques. She learned that rote memorization was ineffective. Instead, she started associating new words with images, creating silly sentences, or connecting them to existing knowledge. She used flashcards with spaced repetition software, reviewing words just as she was about to forget them. She also made sure to use newly learned words in her self-talk and writing within a day or two. Active recall proved far superior to passive recognition. Contextual learning was paramount. Instead of just learning happy, she'd learn feeling happy, a happy occasion, happy ending. This method helped her understand the nuances and collocations, making the words much more useful in actual conversation. Maya started observing how people speak English, not just what they said, but how they said it. She paid attention to intonation, stress patterns, and common conversational fillers. This passive listening became an active lesson in natural English delivery. She watched interviews, documentaries, and even casual vlogs, dissecting conversations. How did they interrupt politely? What phrases did they use to agree or disagree? This deep observation helped her mimic the natural flow and rhythm, making her own speech sound more authentic. She would often repeat sentences aloud, trying to match the speaker's intonation and speed. This mimicking, though sometimes feeling odd, trained her vocal muscles and ears to the music of English. It was a crucial step beyond just knowing the words. Once her internal confidence grew, Maya knew the next big step was to interact with others. The idea still sparked anxiety, but she felt better equipped. She began searching for opportunities to engage in real conversations, starting small. Her first attempts were online, in language exchange groups. She found partners eager to learn her native tongue, offering English in return. These were low-stakes environments, perfect for building conversational stamina without the pressure of a real-world audience. These online conversations were invaluable English talking practice. She started with simple greetings and introductions, gradually venturing into deeper topics. Each conversation, no matter how brief or hesitant, chipped away at her speaking anxiety. She realized that most people were incredibly supportive and patient. They understood the difficulties of learning a new language. This positive reception encouraged her to speak more, to experiment with new phrases, and to make mistakes without fear. Maya developed strategies for how to talk with anyone. She prepared a few open-ended questions about common topics like hobbies or travel. She focused on active listening, letting the other person speak, and responding thoughtfully rather than just reacting. She learned to ask follow-up questions, showing genuine interest. This kept conversations flowing naturally and allowed her to practice more extensive responses. It wasn't about perfect grammar, but about effective communication and building rapport. Mistakes still happened, of course, but now she viewed them as learning opportunities, not failures. A mispronounced word or an awkward sentence would just prompt a quick correction or clarification, and then the conversation would continue. Every successful conversation, however short, boosted her confidence immensely. She started feeling less like a student struggling with rules and more like a communicator, capable of conveying her thoughts and understanding others. Maya realized the power was in integrating all these techniques. Her self-talk refined her internal grammar. Reading expanded her vocabulary and natural phrasing. Thinking in English made her responses quicker. And talking with others solidified everything. Her daily routine now included short bursts of self-talk while doing chores, a dedicated reading slot before bed, and regular online chats. Learning wasn't confined to specific hours, it was interwoven into the fabric of her life. The cumulative effect was astonishing. Words that once felt alien now rolled off her tongue. Conversations that once terrified her became enjoyable exchanges. She was no longer just learning English. She was living it. She understood that language learning went far beyond memorizing grammar rules and vocabulary lists. It was about developing an intuitive feel for the language, a fluency that came from consistent exposure and active practice in all forms. Maya's journey highlighted that there's no single right way to learn. It's a deeply personal process of experimentation and discovery. What worked for one person might not work for another, but persistence was universally key. Persistence, patience, and a willingness to step out of her comfort zone were her greatest allies. She had to forgive herself for stumbles and celebrate every small victory, no matter how insignificant it seemed at the moment. Embracing the learning process, with all its ups and downs, became her mantra. She stopped chasing perfection and instead focused on progress. This shift in mindset was liberating, making the entire journey more enjoyable and sustainable long-term. She found opportunities for English talking practice in real-life scenarios. Asking for directions, ordering food, or engaging in small talk with tourists, each interaction was a mini challenge, honing her skills in authentic situations. Her listening comprehension also soared. Understanding different accents and speaking speeds became easier. This improved her ability to respond appropriately, making conversations feel more natural and less like an interrogation. Beyond formal study, she expanded her vocabulary through sheer exposure. Listening to English podcasts, watching movies without subtitles, and even following English-speaking social media accounts constantly introduced new words and phrases. There was immense joy in understanding subtle nuances, jokes, and cultural references that once flew over her head. English was no longer just a collection of words. It was a living, breathing entity that opened up new worlds. Through English, Maya started connecting with people from diverse cultures, sharing experiences and perspectives. The language became a bridge, allowing her to forge friendships and expand her understanding of the world. The biggest lesson was the power of consistency. A few minutes of practice every day yielded far greater results than intense, infrequent study sessions. Daily engagement, even minimal, kept the language fresh in her mind. Building a language learning routine that fit her lifestyle was crucial. She didn't force herself to do things she disliked. Instead, she integrated English into her hobbies, like reading fantasy novels or watching cooking shows. This personalized approach made learning sustainable and enjoyable. She discovered that passion, not pressure, was the ultimate motivator. When learning felt like play, progress was inevitable and often surprising. From a hesitant beginner, Maya transformed into a confident English speaker. Her journey was a testament to the power of unconventional methods, dedicated practice, and an unwavering belief in her own capabilities. Her advice to anyone struggling was always the same: start talking to yourself. Read stories you love. Think in English. And don't be afraid to connect with others, even if it's just online. Every word counts. She emphasized embracing one's unique voice and accent. The goal wasn't to sound like someone else, but to communicate clearly and confidently. Authenticity, she realized, was more important than perfect pronunciation. Learning a language is a continuous journey, not a destination. Maya knew she would always be learning, encountering new words, and refining her expressions. The joy was in the ongoing discovery. Her enhanced English skills unlocked countless new opportunities, both professionally and personally. She could now participate in international projects, travel with greater ease, and truly engage with global content. The most profound change was not just in her ability to speak, but in her mental landscape. Thinking and communicating in English had broadened her perspective, making her a more adaptable and confident individual overall. A deep sense of accomplishment filled her. She had conquered a fear that once seemed insurmountable. The quiet, self-conscious learner had blossomed into a vibrant, expressive communicator, all through consistent effort. Maya's story became an inspiration to others in her community, proving that fluency isn't an innate talent, but a skill cultivated through deliberate practice and smart strategies. Her journey was a beacon of hope. The internal practices, self-talk, and thinking in English were the foundational pillars. They built a robust mental framework, enabling external communication. These silent sessions were truly transformative, preparing her for real-world interactions. Then came the crucial external practice, talking with anyone, engaging in active listening, and participating in language exchanges. These real conversations honed her responsiveness and conversational fluidity, bridging the gap from theory to application. Reading, especially learning English through stories, immersed her in authentic language. It provided the vocabulary and natural sentence structures needed to express complex ideas, making her communication richer and more varied. Effective word retention strategies ensured her vocabulary continuously grew. Connecting words to context and using spaced repetition cemented them in her memory, making them readily accessible during conversations. Maya's transformation was complete. She wasn't just speaking English, she was thinking, dreaming, and living in English. Her journey demonstrated that with the right techniques and unwavering dedication, anyone can achieve fluency and confidence.